everyone and welcome to a video that is unlike anything else we've had here. 2 days ago, Riot had a panel at PAX where they gathered some of the people from the narrative team, and together they talked about the lore of League of Legends. And let me tell you right now, there were some interesting teasers floating around. So why don't we have a look at the topics of this panel? In the first half, the team introduced themselves and they talked about what is their job at Riot. And in the second half, they answered questions from people. Of course, if you are a long-time viewer of this channel, you would already know most of these guys. Ariel Lawrence, who is responsible for the stories of Yasuo, Riven, and even the Star Guardian series. Laurie Golding, the lead narrative editor, who's Vel'Koz main, I think. Also, just from first impressions, he's the most zen person I have ever seen. Ellie Pyle, the comic artist and editor at Riot, and remember her because she may drop some teasers later. Anthony Reynolds, who taught us about Swain, the Triforix, and he wrote the recent Bilgewater audio stories. Matt Dunn, who worked on so many of the big guys like Kindred, Aurelion Sol, Ornn, and even Pyke. And of course there's also Dylan, who I believe goes by Dykwill. Or Dykwill? He is one of the publishers at Riot. So, at the beginning the team summed up what narrative even is in League, and you'd be surprised what it actually is. Besides just writing stories, the team has an influence on how champions behave, what's the core of their character, and often they simply answer the question why stuff is. And this can even range from champion abilities to champions' visuals. Narrative simply gives reason to design. And when it comes to the storytelling, it's not just written stories, but it's also comics or even short cinematic movies. In general, the first half of the panel was an introduction to how the story in League of Legends work. But that doesn't mean it wasn't interesting, especially when Twitch chat turns everything into inappropriate jokes.
What is the inspiration for it? And it starts with a process we call DNA. Oh, I just popped my pee really loud. So sorry.
So if you're interested in the part where the writers themselves explain how they get into actually writing the stories, it would be better if you just watch the VOD yourself, since me doing a TLDW of it kinda defeats the purpose of the panel. But I still want to point out some of the interesting things they said themselves. You can definitely tell that they are as excited for the stories as we are, and they also want to push forward bigger events.
That was one of the things that really excited me when I was a League player, was like we get to know these characters a little bit, but it's almost like little hints of story of the background and these different relationships they have. And one of the things that I was really excited about was just to I want to see those stories. I want to see what happened, what happened with Lucian and Thresh exactly in Senna. I want to see that story play out. Or I really want to see what happens when Renekton catches up with Nasus. These were the sort of things that really excite me.
I also want to see that. Can we have that? Why don't we have that? Later they mentioned that they also do sketches just like other artists. Only here, instead of art sketches, they do story sketches. So it is safe to say that the narrative team at least knows which direction they want to go with their characters, even before the production begins.
And some of those story sketches, if they're good enough and if they resonate enough with the pod, which is what we call our DNA team and our artists and our animators and engineers, if it resonates enough, they become stories that we tell in either color text or promotional materials, or become stories that we leave hooks for other writers and comics and short stories and novellas. And some of them don't get released and they just hang in the ether and become part of our subtext for talking about a champion. An example of that is if you've heard the song for Ornn, the Path to Hearthhome, that started as a story sketch that was never released. And that was kind of fun to see that become, that's what it evolved into, and the story will probably not get released for the foreseeable future.
Oh, you can tell how happy he is talking about Ornn. Well, I would be too, that song's pretty catchy. Later, Anthony mentioned that when it comes to picking what story or what champion they should do next, it is usually easier to connect it to other products that are shipping. So for example, Nunu was on his way to League, so it was a good idea to update the entire culture around him. But then...
about during champion creation or champion update as well is at what point of their arc, of their journey, is each character on? Because Echo's right at the beginning of his journey. He hasn't even had his Uncle Ben moment yet. He is still
Don't say that.
young. Yeah, he's not there yet.
Oh no, do you know how many people cried when they read the story of Echo? If they pull off an Uncle Ben moment with Echo, if Echo's parents are going to die, boy will that be a story. And boy do I hope they change Echo's character to be depressed when that happens. And then we circle back to Laurie Golding for our first big confirmation.
It comes back to the title of the seminar, I guess, like stories beyond Summoner's Rift, because Summoner's Rift and League of Legends, the game, is not the easiest place to tell stories that feel like they matter to these champions, and it's much more. Even back, years and years ago, people asking like, but what are summoners? What is Summoner's Rift? Like the Institute of War and all of these things. Like, where does all of that exist? Oh well, it's these people controlling champions in order to settle disputes. It's like, yeah, but what world are they living in? Like, I want to know stories that are happening in the real world, not just within Summoners, not within this battle arena where I can fight 5 versus 5 and destroy a base. And we don't tell stories on Summoner's Rift at all anymore, really, because Summoner's Rift doesn't technically exist outside of the game, maybe?
Well, it makes it very difficult, like, as a...
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Summoner's Rift is not real anymore. I mean, we knew that, and he said maybe. I think the maybe was dropped in because Summoner's Rift could be made real if they wanted to. The setting kinda fits into the contested areas between Noxus and Demacia, so they can make it real, but as of right now, the Summoner's Rift does not exist as a place in Runeterra. And right after this statement, Laurie dropped a very interesting story that essentially led into the map of Runeterra. Maybe not into the creation, but it was certainly a part of it.
When I first arrived at Riot, so I've been at Riot for like almost 2 years, and I came from publishing, from novels and story publishing. And I didn't know the Runeterra background and IP as well as I probably should have done before I arrived, and I had to sort of very quickly learn as much as I could about these champions and about what they'd done and what their characters were and where they existed in the world. And I found it quite difficult, and I kept going to Ant and asking, like, where does this champion live? Like, where's Demacia? Like, it talks about this place, is that in Noxus? Like, what is Noxus? And I said it'd be really helpful if there was a map. And they were, oh, actually, it's funny you should say that because there might actually be a map coming up. That'd be really useful for me. But Ant, you then told me that that map didn't ship.
For a while.
Well, originally we had a different map that we were working on a couple of years back, and we almost got it. It was beautiful and it was almost like fully polished and ready to launch, but we kind of had to take a step back from it because it started to become looking incredibly literal. Like, it was so beautifully rendered, but it made it look like every mountain that was on the map was an exact mountain, and that was all the mountains there could be. For one thing, it made the world look really small. It kind of looked like a golf course. Like, it looked like it was a nice sort of par 5 between Noxus and Demacia with a couple of forests on either side. But it started to become, I think it would have become very limiting because it looked like everything that was on the map was all that could ever be on the map. Like, every forest, you could see it there, every city and town was there. Whereas the map we've launched now, I think, is one that we're going to continue to evolve. So it's not like land masses are going to shift or anything like that, but we can always add, if we need like a city that is going to get destroyed in a story or something, we can add that onto the map. So it's going to be an ever-evolving kind of thing.
Here I want to quickly point out how important it is to keep some windows open when it comes to creating new stories. Veteran players of World of Warcraft would remember how certain parts of the original Azeroth map were mysteries. There were places on the map, and sometimes right in the middle of it, where the players weren't sure what they would find there. And the reason for it was that the writers could use that place to expand the world anytime they would need to. Riot has done the exact same thing. By making some of the places more open and vague, they have a lot of room for future stories. This allows them to even add brand new races and nations if need be. Then they continued talking about the map and how important it was to make sure everything fits. By that I mean stuff like what kind of food do people eat in those places. Piltover is a trading city, so it has to be in a good spot. Ships that go out might be an easy target for Bilgewater pirates. But later, Ellie dropped a very sneaky teaser for a potential project.
You are also going to want stories that kind of, if say we were going to make some longer comic series at some point, have the potential to keep going and to feel like satisfying chapters while still being able to continuously build upon what happened.
Oh, you thought this was an innocent what-if sentence, didn't you? But that smile betrayed you. You know what that smile says to me? It says, we are actually working on a longer comic series, but I will not say anything. And that is all I needed to know. Then of course Ezreal dropped a bomb that a lot of people took as a teaser for an upcoming MMO.
Why is Riot building a world for a game that's not really designed to be a story-based game?
Well, because we like telling stories, and two, we would like to make stories across as many products as possible, and so we want to build a world that supports that. You know, we get a lot of questions like, what are you driving towards? You know, how is this world going to end? And that's not the thing that we're really excited about right now. We don't want the world to end. We want the world to keep going so that we can keep telling stories about it. So we look for things that can do that and expand the world across all of our different factions and our different champions, you know.
Of course, this was just a way to say that they want to support future cinematics, champion teasers and anything else that might ship with League. A product doesn't have to mean a brand new game, although at this point it very well should be. And now let's have a look at the Q&A, where the narrative team answered some of the story-based questions. And because the first one is very interesting, I'll let it play in its entirety.
We want to turn over to you guys now to ask some questions, so go ahead and line up. We're going to start with one from Necrit, who is the lore YouTube god himself. He had a question for us. We'll start with that, and then we'll take it over to you guys. So his question is, I'm going to read it off here. Kindred are one of the most interesting characters because everyone can interpret them kind of in their own way. Some believe they are a powerful spirit of death roaming around northern Valorant. Others believe they are omnipresent and their work can transcend to even gods. What's the deal?
Literally, as you asked that question, the light above me just started shining brighter, and I am actually, the spotlight just came on me at that
We
moment.
were telling ghost stories backstage.
Yeah, we're not going to go back into that.
If we look paler than usual, it's because we're,
Kindred didn't like that.
The wolf
Matt
has
Dunn,
come.
do you have thoughts about Kindred?
I have thoughts about Kindred. Initially, when we talked about Kindred, the pod and the DNA team, we all believe that Kindred existed beyond the realm of just what's in Valorant, what people can see and hear. They are world-ending not ending, that's bad terminology. They are the kind of beings that do transcend gods. Anything that lives or draws energy from the universe would eventually meet Kindred. That was our intention. And that people in Runeterra would just see them as this like Grim Reaper type entity stalking certain parts of the world. But around the world, around Runeterra, every nation sees Kindred, they see death differently. It's not always going to be a lamb and a wolf. It would be something else in other parts of the world, depending on what they see on a daily basis. And that includes, the bigger entities like demigods and beings of this world. We took a lot of inspiration from, like, one of the best parts of creating a champion is research, and one of the things that was fun to research was getting to reread all of Neil Gaiman's Sandman, with a focus on trying to dissect what endless are. So we, looked at that heavily.
I always like the idea that you guys played around with, that different people might see them slightly differently or venerate different aspects of them. And I always figured that, like, Noxus might not have too much time or interest in the lamb aspect, but they would certainly venerate the wolf. You go, they're all about, you want to have a violent death. That's a good death.
Kiss the wolf.
Yeah.
I will cry.
Okay, so we finally have a confirmation that Kindred aren't just a representation of death on Runeterra for mortals, but they do actually transcend to gods as well. They are death to anything that draws energy from the universe. And despite every being depicting them in a little bit of a different way, for example, Noxians are all about the wolf, people of Needlebrook wish to meet the lamb, and in Freljord it is an honor to dance with the wolf. But this means that even someone like Aurelian Sol might have to meet his celestial wolf as well. After all, even Aurelian is drawing from the energies of the universe. And now let's have a look at some of the other questions that revealed something new. In the first question, people wanted to know what champions were more difficult to bring over to the new universe from the old lore. They talked about Jax a lot here. However, unfortunately, nobody confirmed that CZECH is Jax. Even though he totally is, let's not lie to ourselves. The next question is about what champion would each of the writers want to explore or update. It's a generic question, but the answers reveal something good. Matt Dunn revealed that he is working on Ezreal, so it seems like we can expect more stories to arrive with his rework. Laurie hopped on with Brand and that he was really excited to explore his background. Anthony hinted that he really wants to have a look at Shaco, and that he already has a couple of pitches for the story. Ariel said that Yordles might arrive pretty soon, which, let's be honest, it's about time. Seriously though, I am excited for Yordles. But the biggest drop was Ellie.
I'm racking my brain to see what I can say without getting in trouble.
Are you
To be perfectly honest, I'm gonna give a mean answer, which is that I'm really excited about some stories that are coming up very soon that I don't know if I can talk about because I don't know what's announced and what isn't.
No.
But we have some really exciting stuff kind of in the works, whether that's champions that are being reworked or champions who are getting stories in other mediums.
We've announced those ones on Champion Roadmap. All the stuff that Reeves posted for Champion Roadmap.
Okay, well, I'm really excited about the Kayle and Morgana update that's coming. I'm very excited about that.
Yes.
You see, this wouldn't be that much of a deal if it wasn't Ellie. She said that she's excited about Kayle and Morgana, and she was very hesitant whether she should or shouldn't even mention it. On top of that, she is a comic artist, which means that it is possible that we are getting another comic story coming in for Kayle and Morgana. This would make sense because even their teaser image did look like a comic book panel. The next question is about death, and if it is possible to even endanger a champion. Here I want to play the entire answer.
Yeah, it's really hard to kill people in our world.
You just keep coming back.
But not beyond the realms of possibility.
Yeah. That's a question we get asked a lot is, can we kill champions? We're like, we can.
Should we?
And eventually, we already have a bet going around like at the office, like who's going to be the first champion to die. Everybody has their... We should take a poll on this as well.
So fast on the button there.
It's got to be Yasuo.
It is possible. They said it is possible. They even have bets onto who it is going to be. This one hyped me way more than it should. My bet would still be on Pantheon, because they can kill that character while bringing back another version of him for his rework. But I am happy to say that death of a character and finally some exciting danger may arrive to a story. The next question was about Shadow Isles, and here we learned that the harrowing stories are not really connected to our Halloween, so spooky timing isn't really happening here. However, while the Shadow Isles are a place with a massive story potential, Ariel confirmed that we will have a look at the Blessed Isles before that. So maybe we will learn more about Tyrus of Helya, the Master of Rise, pretty soon. The next question was about the timeline, and how will the writers potentially move the characters forward should something happen. Here we learned that while all the stories are being set up, for example this heralded cataclysm teased by Zoe, it is important to get through the base bios for all champions first. So right now, all champions in-game are the best versions that fit their fantasy. And it almost seems like they don't plan on changing that character in-game to reflect the events around, unless they actually update all the champions. So with enough patience, we will get our world-changing events. And we will see some changes in characters. The next question was a glorious one, let's have a look.
Star Guardian Lux.
Yep. All right. Prior to the retcon, like a relationship between Lux and Ezreal was being hinted at.
I can't answer this, Lori.
Lori, you want to
Lori's
take
gonna
this?
crawl under the
He's
table.
not allowed to. Nope.
Okay. Well, I asked at the playoffs of the park yesterday, but with like Lux's voiceover.
You did. I remember this.
Yeah. But for those that weren't there, like Lux got her voiceover update, putting the relationship into question, and then Zoe showed up trying to get in between the two of them. And now with Ezreal's update incoming, will Lux's and Ezreal's relationship be addressed?
I really hope so. I've got plans. I will say that in game they will reference each other, or at least Ezreal will.
All right.
I promise you.
Take that for what you will. Next question. This one was about how do writers interact with the maps and the worlds from alternative universes, such as the Star Guardian invasion mode or the Project Overcharge hunt. Here we basically learned that they dump the champions as they are into the new world, and see what that world does to them. So it is basically a question of, what if a certain champion did this in this place? Then we got a question about the old Journal of Justice and if it could be brought back. In the new universe you can't really give the whole world regular updates, because you can't get a good point of view. In the old Journal of Justice there was basically one person that printed the journals, and that's how he told the world what was happening, just like if you watch the news on TV. However, in the new world we don't have a character that would have that kind of knowledge. and if they did, they wouldn't want to share it with the world. Later, we even got an answer onto how our Shin turned into Aurelian Soul. Apparently, writing a dragon story was quite a challenge, so Matt Dunn looked into what they haven't seen before. That's how they settled on a Star Dragon, and the big inspiration for that was David Bowie.
David fucking Bowie.
The next question, again, I'll play in its entirety, because it is very interesting.
Hi, so I'm just wondering because in Zaya's VO, she says our Vestian essence is fading every day, and she says that us Vestia are less
Part of
than what
their
we used to be.
yeah.
Are we ever going to see what a true Vestia at full power would be?
Certainly a possibility of
I
that.
cannot confirm or deny this answer at this moment in time. Pleading the fifth.
Okay,
We sure would like to.
fair enough.
You will see something close.
Cool.
They're not talking about it. It means they've got something in the works. That's what that is. So hang tight.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
This, ladies and gentlemen, was another teaser for a future champion. So suddenly all those teaser flowers make sense, don't they? Then we got a question about story events and why there hasn't been one on the scale of Bilgewater. The simple answer is that for that event everything lined up. It is really hard to get 4 or 5 offices to work on one thing. And it was only possible because at the time all of them had a window to work on Bilgewater. And finally, the best question in the entire Q&A. You guys know me, you know how much I laughed when I heard this.
Thank you.
We have time for probably one more question. So go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna up the ante with 3 questions.
You got one.
Any plans for Malphite?
Yes?
Yes. Yes, there are plans for
All right,
Malphite.
do you guys plan on connecting him to Mount Targon in some way? Because I noticed that he has elements of multiple of the Targonian aspects. He has the engage power, someone like Leona, and the CC. He has the burst damage potentially, someone like Diana, and he has the whole armor scaling thing of Tarek and stuff like that. So.
I noticed this turned into 2 questions.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think we should take another question.
I think we would never necessarily try to tell stories that are only focused on the way that champions appear in League of Legends, because we want to create stories and champions that can exist outside of League of Legends as well. But yes, we have plans to explore Malphite.
Okay.
So that was it for the Q&A. To sum up what we learned. Kindred really are death. They do affect even the most powerful beings. Kayle and Morgana possibly might get a comic. There is a new champion in works that might be closer to a pure Vastaya. Events affecting the world will arrive after all champions get updated. And Malphite is in works. At least they want to update him, which was obvious. But that is going to be it for this video. I really enjoyed this Q&A, listening to them talking about how they actually make the stories was a really nice change. I hope the narrative team does more talks like this one, because it really does bring the lore much closer to the readers. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to rate it and subscribe for more lore and news. Links to our social media, Twitch merch and P.O.Box will be in the description. Of course, massive shout out to our patrons for going the extra mile, you guys are amazing. And with that, thank you all so much for being here and for your support, you know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you again.